Hello everyone and welcome to today's SAP Solution Manager workshop. Our topic today will be on automatic testing using CBTA and Solution Manager 7.2 test suite. And we will have a live demo at the end of the presentation. I'd like to introduce today's presenter. We have Larry Wilson, a Senior Solution Manager Testing Practice Lead and experienced consultant with Core ALM. If this is your first time attending, we run these workshops for the SAP community, and if you're a regular, we really thank you for your presence here today. I'd like to add that we run these webinar workshops to give back to the SAP community as part of our company culture. As such, we make these workshops interactive with polls to get feedback and learn how we can make it better for future webinars. We have a few polls throughout the webinar, so your participation is appreciated. From our past polls, we saw that there was an increased interest in testing workshops. As such, the past few workshops and following workshops will be based on Test Suite 7.2. If you missed any of our workshops, you can find them on our YouTube channel. All right, so let's get on with our agenda. We'll do a quick intro to Core ALM and then a quick overview of Solution Manager 7.2 for those new to the platform. We will then proceed on to our main topic on Test Suite. CBTA followed by a live demo. We'll then finish the workshop with a Q&A. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can submit a question to us by typing your questions in the questions pane of the control panel on the GoToWebinars interface. You may send in your questions anytime during the presentation. We will collect them and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. So a little bit about us. We are a dedicated team of experts focused on digital transformation lifecycle within the SAP ecosystem and have a strong team of former SAP Solution Manager practice leads. We are a recognized leader with a proven track record to deliver ALM solutions and have been driving the adoption of SAP Solution Manager in many companies. Our main expertise is in Solution Manager and all aspects of the platform. But as you can see, we are pretty well-rounded in all aspects of managing an application lifecycle. With a push to HANA, we also help companies with HANA conversions and upgrades. And these are awards and certifications. We are SAP partner and SAP certified and run SAP implementations. With that being said, thank you once again for attending. And I'll now hand it over to Larry.
Yeah, thanks, Ivan. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. And here we go. Okay, so yeah, thanks, Ivan. And so first of all, I want to talk a little bit about Solution Manager 7.2 overall. So it started out pretty basic back in the early days. A lot of implementations use the document management and project management part of Solution Manager. And then testing, there was test management. Later on with 7.1, testing began to have some new functionality, business process change analysis, scope and effort analyzer, and CBTA is one of those products that was introduced as part of 7.1. So 7.2 now is, it's really built to support SAP and SAP HANA, the HANA platform, the digital business going forward. So it's really matured and changed over the years, and a big part of 7.1 going to 7.2 as it pertains to testing is the architecture was changed. So there's a lot of new improvements, enhancements, and features that have been introduced in 7.2 that weren't really possible until the new architecture with Solution Manager was implemented with 7.2. So one of the big things with Solution Manager 7.2 and any Fiori front end, the Launchpad is the Fiori Launchpad. So it makes it a lot easier to navigate. Not so many icons or drop downs that you would need to be able to navigate and move around. And so the user interface using Fiori UI5, that's the beginning part of Solution Manager 7.2, the dashboards and navigation. So benefits of 7.2, and this gives you an idea of all the functional areas that are in 7.2. Of course, test suite, and then today we're doing a deep dive into CBTA. Process management is closely tied to test suite and testing, the hierarchy and where the documents are stored. And then landscape management, data volume management, change control management, of course, that's really tied real closely with test suite. Application operations, project management, business process operations, IT service management, and custom code management. And Core LM, you know, we have experts in each of those areas. And today, of course, just test suite. So you can see the benefits of Solution Manager. So it's a pretty comprehensive IT support system. So now, as Ivan mentioned, we'll have a few polls during the presentation. So the first one that we're opening up is, have you upgraded to Solution Manager 7.2? And so if you'll go ahead and answer that poll question, and we'll have the results of that. So the poll is closed now. And Ivan, do you have the results?
Yeah, I do. So we have about like 17% that have not upgraded, and majority of the attendees today have not upgraded, sorry. So 17 have upgraded and 67 have not, and the rest not sure. So a bulk of the attendees today, I'm not sure if they upgraded.
Okay, thanks. So we'll go on to the next slide now, and for those of you who haven't upgraded, this slide will be interesting to you. So here's where we are with 7.2 timeline. Today we're, or it started today, we're in mainstream maintenance, keeps going through, or it started out at the beginning of the project, or cutovers to 7.2. So upgrades are going on now from 7.1 to 7.2. So the end of this year, mainstream maintenance for 7.2 takes over till 2025. And then the mainstream maintenance ends for 7.1, and it'll be customer specific maintenance. So you will still have maintenance, but you know, SAP's recommending you upgrade to 7.2 now, and the latest release is 7.5, is 7.2 support pack 5. So that's information on Solution Manager 7.2, the full Solution Manager. And now we'll get into the test suite overviews. So test suite is where CBTA is part of it, and for maybe some of you or a lot of you may have attended our previous webinar where we talked about test suite in detail. So it's a full application for automated and manual testing, change impact analysis. So, you know, it's a complete system. And as I mentioned, the architecture change enabled a lot of enhancements that we've looked to happen for years that are now part of 7.2 and support pack 5. So it's for SAP and non-SAP, S/4HANA, premise, on-premise or cloud, and also non-SAP applications that may be on-premise or cloud. Integration, Big thing is single source of truth. Everything, like you saw, testing is tied in a lot with change management and release management and with process documentation. So it's all tied together and integrated within Solution Manager. And there are complex data replications now that, especially with like business process change analysis, having it all in Solution Manager really reduces the amount of data that you're moving around. That's very complex. So SAP is saying Test Suite is a comprehensive test solution, and it fits the needs of the vast majority of SAP customers. So again, it's built to support Test Suite supports S/4HANA implementation, process management, closely coupled with test management. You can import SAP best practices and document business processes used in S/4HANA. So what this means, you can download it when you're building your process hierarchy, the branches, and they give you good examples of how test cases should look, how business processes should be documented that tie in with testing. And then Test Suite is for manual automated testing or for change business processes. So as you can see again, Solution Manager, HANA on-premise or cloud editions. So Test Suite, in our previous webinar, we went in detail of the process flow for Test Suite. So again, solution documentation is closely coupled because that's where the test cases, manual and automated, reside. And then, of course, test planning, test execution, and Test Suite analysis. But today's focus is on test automation framework and especially CBTA. So within the framework, CBTA supports UI technologies for SAP GUI, all the SAP GUI user interfaces, SAP GUI, WebDenPro, ABAP, CRM, Web Client, UI5, Fiori, and partner tools would be other technologies, meaning CBTA is the first choice for SAP user interface. And if you have, for example, in an end-to-end scenario, maybe a web that's not SAP and you want to use HPUFT, those would fit together in an end-to-end scenario within the framework of Test Suite. So moving on, test framework and CBTA. So again, as a support pack 3 released last year, here's all the UI technologies that are supported by CBTA. And then the next slide, just wanted to mention that in support pack 5 Solution Manager, CBTA, there's improved automation of the Fiori UI5 applications and SAP GUI for HTML. And you can see some of the other things within the framework in the test composition environment. So again, SAP continues to make enhancements and improvements in Test Suite for CBTA and testing framework. Next is the automated testing. So this is the process flow again. So solution documentation, you can start here, and you can start in solution documentation, or you could create a test composition, and then later solution documentation could assign that test configuration. But test composition environment is where you create a test configuration, and that gets linked to solution documentation to the executables. So test configuration in 7.2 has improved a lot. There's a lot of attributes that before you had to enter in manually. But if you start out in solution documentation, you're attached to the executable, and most all the attributes now will get populated for you as you move from solution documentation. But the other way to do this, and you'll see it in the demo, is with the test repository. You can create a test configuration, and you may want to do that sometimes. Maybe the solution documentation is being built, and in parallel, maybe you want to begin doing some automation. So after the test configuration is built, so it's test configuration, and then there's a test composite. Once you have test configuration built, you can have many of those test configurations into a test composite, and this is especially good for end-to-end regression testing, which is really a real important part of the testing operation. So next is CBTA Test Wizard, and in CBTA Test Wizard, is when you do the recording, and it captures and builds components, and then finalize after that is to add the parameters are added from test data assignments, and then the test is finally run and ready for debugging if needed. Ivan, my screen is frozen.
Okay.
Let's see if I can see what I can do with it here. Okay, now it seems to be back.
Yeah.
Okay. So so going through the process again. So automated test cases creation or repair. This has been available in 7.1 now. In 7.2, there's new attributes for test classification, like regression test, integration test, and then in 7.2 support pack 5, you can assign multiple classifications to a test case. So in a test configuration, you build, for example, a business transaction, a quote, a sales order, and delivery. Next is selection. If you go through the assigning the test case to the documentation node, this is an example of what the way Solution Manager, Solution Documentation, and Solution Manager 7.2 is built. And then, so there's two parts to it. There's the libraries, which has executables, so like our process steps. So here's where executables, for example, here's VF01, VA21, and then ZVA01, so executables, and then process steps. And then from that, the libraries, you can build business processes and end-to-end scenarios. And that's the part where a test configuration would be assigned, or if it's a manual test case, it would be a manual test case. So the first step in the process would be the node, and then launch the test composition environment. And then the environment, you can see here in the screenshot, there's test script, there's attributes, parameters, and that's where you begin building end-to-end test cases. So for test composition environments, if you do start out in solution documentation, now most of the attributes, when there's an executable, then the system data container, target system, test profile, all of those automatically get populated, and system data container is not a manual activity again. So again, these are improvements, enhancements that for usability. So after we launched the test composition tool, so this kind of shows it a little bit differently here, business processes, and then test configuration includes test script, test data, system under test, test data containers, and then the composite test is mini test configuration and end-to-end scenario. So you can see here where CBTA is, you have one test configuration, CBTA, and then a second test configuration, a UFT configuration, and then another CBTA. So, you know, this would be a non-SAP functionality within an end-to-end scenario, as opposed to like a non-SAP where it might be just for totally non-SAP. So next, recording the business transaction, and that is done with the beginning to record that in the test wizard. After you recorded, and you'll see these in the demo, after the business transaction's recorded, the test composition is the test configuration is built, and it has components that are built into those tests. So again, whenever you do the adjusting, it's been recorded, then you adjust it, you put in parameters for the end-to-end test cases. Data, the debugging of a script. So CBTA has a debugger, can set up breakpoints. You may be familiar with this with other tools. Can run it up to a certain point. You can see the input and output parameters and the variables and see where it might be failing. So that's one way to repair a test case. And assigning data. So there's two types of data. There's the test data container, which can be used for manual and automated tests. So the way it works is it's a structure. The test data is created by business analysts. It can be created by CBTA scripts. There's other ways to get the data, existing data if you want to, and get it into a spreadsheet, and then that spreadsheet ends up being a part of the test data container for manual or automated test case. And just to mention again, in end-to-end test cases, you may just use CBTA to record the test data that you need as part of the end-to-end scenario. So test data assignment wizard. So for CBTA scripts, you can go to the test data container and set it up to run as part of out of test configuration. And then test classification, again, that's done in solution documentation. So after you have the script, you run it and make sure there's no changes, but the test repair is tied in with the test recording, then you run it, and there may be test repair. So, but examples of needing to do a test repair, one or many fields in the application become mandatory, or new fields are introduced. One or many mandatory fields are removed, and then completely new sets of screens are introduced. So how do you, how is this handled? So if there's existing fields, and all the screen component possible fields have been captured, then you can, there's an exposed. So you would go into CBTA, we'd change it from blank to exposed as a parameter and put in a value here. If there's so that's the way you do it, and then it would be vice versa if the field were no longer required. Then new screens or new fields. Sometimes with custom screens, there's CBTA inspection that recreates the screen component. So screen component, and then there's other types of components. So this is the way the screen component with sales org distribution. So as new screens might be introduced, instead of having to re-record the whole script, you can regenerate the screen component using the inspection functionality, and then expose the parameters. So existing fields not becoming non-mandatory. So you set this to not used if it was mandatory before. And if it's a field that's been completely removed, you regenerate the screen component again. So again, this is component-based, meaning that you don't have to go through and re-record the whole script. You don't have to go through and change code. It's all done within the test composition environment and the test configuration. So after the test case has been repaired, can run it and then record additional. So there's a new part in 7.2 that you can go up to a certain point, so you can execute up to a certain point in a script. And so you highlight that component that you want it to run up to, run it up to that point, and then you can record additional steps after that using CBTA. And I'll show you that in the demo also. So test execution of automated scripts, the way that works. So within Test Suite, there's a couple of ways, and so one of them, Test Suite with a tester work list, and we touched on this in the previous webinar. And so that starts the execution, uses test data container, and then the test script plus the test data plus the system under test. It runs and then creates the test results. So, a lot of times you have questions, about how you might run these. So there's 3 ways. So you can run a test configuration by itself within a tester work list. You can trigger all test configurations in a test package. So setting it up in a test package, setting test configurations in a test package, and set it up so they all run together. So you may have 10, 15, 20, 50 end-to-end scenarios. If you wanted to just run them all at one time, set them up in a test package, and then that test package would run and give you the results. And then you could schedule these to run on a current or remote machine, so they can be scheduled. So scheduling execution, you can do that on multiple PCs by having different packages. So there's a lot of different options in running the test. So now we're at a second poll question. So you should see the poll question come up now. And are you currently using a testing platform for SAP? And that means, like HP Quality Center, for example, or HPLM now, or maybe you're already using SAP. So we'll leave that open for a minute for you to record your results.
I have the results here, and overwhelmingly the attendees of this webinar do use the testing platform for SAP. So I have like 89% yes on this one, and 11% maybe. So, yeah.
Okay, so ready to go. So now we're ready for the demo, and I'm gonna have to close that out and move over to, so this is 7.2 test suite. So again, here's, as you saw on some of the slides, here's what the Fiori looks like. So we have a couple of places here where we have that we can pick up the testing information. So one of them is My Home, and then another one, these are all different parts of Solution Manager now, or in Test Suite. So I'm going to go here where I have Test Suite Work Center, and that's where I go for the demo. And then to the test repository, which already have that set up. So in test repository, so again, you can start by creating test cases in the test repository, or the other way again is through solution documentation. So solution documentation kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. In solution documentation, open this up. And so here would be an example of procure to goods receipt. So this is at the process level, this is process step level, this is scenario level, different end-to-end scenarios. So procure to goods receipt, I'll show you this earlier or later in the demo. And then test configuration, as I mentioned, is attached to this one. So the way that works is you can create a test configuration here, which would be you know, the recommended way. But again, if you have something going on in parallel, the solution documentation hierarchy is not ready, you could create it in test repository and then assign it later. So kind of gives you a little bit of an idea how this works. It's all tied in together, meaning T-bombs and other documents are all together here. And the hierarchy for testing, this is real important. Instead of it's a real value adder, because you don't have to have multiple projects and check in and check out, and then when you really get ready to do a project, an enhancement pack or support pack, trying to figure out what's the latest version of the test case. So it works. You can have maintenance, which would be like you know, run the business, run SAP. So you're making maybe releases, you know, minor changes and enhancements, and you can have a test case that's being used to support that. You could have another test case in innovation as you're doing a major project, and like an enhancement pack upgrade. And then at the end of it, it's like change management transports. There's like you're able to retrofit it, meaning that the latest or the most current version that matches what's going on in production would be at this level. So kind of good information to know from a testing perspective, you know, how this helps. So you don't have to check in and check out. You can have multiple projects going on at the same time too. So getting back to the test composition environment. So what I did was in test repository, I went ahead and selected this. I don't want to do this one. So first of all, I'll show you how to record a test case here. So again, as you come out of solution documentation, most of this information is automatically filled in now. It's a big improvement over 7.1. So launch the test creation wizard here, and it should show up here. And expand that out a little bit. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a new part in 7.2 that's really good. So you execute up to like a breakpoint, and then you can record additional steps, and they can be inserted after the one that you selected, or you can record additional steps and replace everything after selected one. So in automated in recording test scripts, no matter what product that you use, you may have things that you that don't work, that you have when you run the report, and there's different ways to fix that. But this really helps out a lot with repairing test cases. So as a business analyst, you wouldn't necessarily, or as a test analyst, you wouldn't necessarily need somebody to the heavy technical person to be able to repair a test case. So after this, it just launches the transaction. The one that I'm using today is ME51N, creating a purchase requisition. And just for sake of time, just making it three items that I have to enter the data in, and then I'll do the check, and it'll check it out. So let's see, HT1007. Not that one. HT not activated, so let me go back and check something here real quickly. I'll cancel this. Seems like here we go. A little slow there. So let me see, HT-1007 is the one I want to use, so. Loading up now, so go ahead and get back to that point again. So HT-1007 and a quantity of 10, plan of 3,200, and now we get it. So wanted to show you that a couple of things here in the test configuration wizard. So you can add a checkpoint, and the checkpoint can, in this case, check to make sure that the what's in the cell value, and it checks the data. There's different values that you can, or different choices that you can have if you want to find data, if you want to do a checkpoint. So the checkpoint really for testing, though, this is verification. So anytime you have a test case that says verify or validate, or where you're checking expected results, that's what happens. And then screenshot is just going to capture the screen that's being recorded there. So over here. So I want to end this one. So it's saved. Purchase requisition was saved, and now I'll stop the recording and I'll show you that. Again, looks like the freezing up there. So I'll cancel up. And what gets recorded is the test script shows you each component. So as we went through there and we were changing, modifying a cell, so we were putting in material. So here's where it's captured in a component. So all those activities use predefined components, modifying a cell, for example, setting a property, which was here, the value of the plant, and then pressing buttons, checking properties again. So that this one is where we do the checkpoint. So it kind of gives you an idea. It's component based, and when execute the test script. Going to run again, and it'll give us a report here of the test, and in the test results, if there were an error and you needed to debug it, I'll show you how that works. So to report HTML report will be created. So it goes through all the different steps in the test case, the CBTA test case, and here's where the different components are. So if one of the components failed, it has a number to it, and within CBTA, within the test configuration option here. Let me clear this out of the screen. So, so there's an index here. So that index is equivalent to the index here. So that's another way to do debugging. If you run into an error message, you can go to the component that failed, and maybe you want to record it or not. So after recorded a test configuration or multiple test configurations, I'll show you now again in the test repository an end-to-end test that I have already put together. Saying it's open, and let me launch this again. And okay, that's good now. So here's an end-to-end, an example of an end-to-end. So just following through with the ME51N, next recorded a ME21N, then a print a PO ME9F, and then a goods receipt. So those are all chained together, and they have parameters that have been created that will be passed to the next. So ME51N parameter is created, is passed to ME21N. The PO is created. That number is passed to the print PO and to the goods receipt. So let me run this so you get an idea of how this works. And here we go. And here in a composite, you'll have to put in a system, target system, and then run the composite test. So this is running out of the test repository. Within the whole test suite package, running it out as a tester work list would be where it would go next as part of a test plan and then a test package. So that's the ME51N was created, and then next that purchase requisition will be used to create the purchase order. And the purchase requisition is going to be over here. So it uses that purchase requisition that was filled out before HT100710, and now it's created a PO 22529. So next, the PO will be, again, parameters passed from ME21N to ME9F, and that will print the purchase order for that 22529. So output message, and then here's the purchase order that was created, and then just one last transaction is the goods receipt, and again it'll be the same purchase order number, but it gives you a visual way of seeing how CBTA works. So it really is good for end-to-end testing, saves a lot of time. It's easy to use, easy to do the recordings and set up and chain those. So material document was posted, and then that number could be used later on as you go into finance and end scenario. So next, it's all completed now, and this is a different report. Each one of the transactions would have their own individual report, like the one you saw before, and then this one includes all that, and it shows the details in here. The execution has a log, and the log will show where it's passing information. Here was the purchase requisition 10048274. So that's doing parameters. That's getting that parameter, and then that parameter is passed on to the purchase order. So I'm gonna one other end-to-end scenario for you to see, and it's Fiori. So just two test configurations in a test composite. So one of them is creating a sales order in Fiori, and the other is tracking a sales order in Fiori. So let me execute that. And for this one, we're using a SAP Fiori demo system and in the cloud. So it's going to go out and going to create a sales order first. So here's the cloud demo system. It's provided by SAP mainly for being able to see how Fiori is set up and how it look and feel of it. But you can use CBTA to record Fiori. So here it's selecting a customer, and then it's going to select a product next. And product, and selecting that one, sunny, and it's saving the product to the cart. Go to the cart and check out, and then it's going to do a review of the shipping information. So here, just could add information here. So again, this is really not like a HANA application, but it's just mainly for showing how Fiori works. Place the order now. So order is 31664. Works the same way. The parameter is for 316 parameter with the order number 31664 is captured, and then that ends that first test configuration, and it'll close that process flow out and captures the sales order number, so 31644, and then next will be tracking of the sales orders, which is, you can see down here, track sales order. It's going to launch that Fiori tile. I'll launch from the Fiori tile and go in and search for, so first of all, it'll search for another number, and then to show that the parameter is passed, it'll come back and use that number that was captured as a parameter. So again, going and looking at the cells area there, and the way it's set up in this. And now it's going to do a search on another number. Clears that out first, and then this 479, just that's just a static value. So it finds that one, and next it's going to come back and do clear this search out, and then do a search for the one that was just created using the parameter that was passed. 31664, which happens to be the one at the top. No others have been created while that was going on. And then clear that out. And goes back to home, and that closes the recording and end-to-end. Get a similar report. So that's I'm going to finish the demo right now, and next we're going to have another poll question. Would you like an individual demo of, and you have some options there. So Ivan, I guess maybe you got poll results.
Yeah, I do. So this is for individual demo of a particular for that because the demos that we hold on the workshops don't usually last that long. So if you're interested, you can reach out to us for a more in-depth demo. It's kind of split across the board on all the products that that we do, 15 to 25%. So it's kind of fair.
Okay. So let me move on now to solution, the value proposition. So test suite overall, it's the integration within Solution Manager, release, portfolio, project, change management, solution documentation, then business process change analysis, which we're going to be having an upcoming webinar. Risk-based testing with test scope optimization. So that's important because in the next demo we'll show you how you can go through and select. So you record test cases with CBTA or UFT or other tools, get them into a test plan, and then or get those tests in solution documentation, and then test scope optimization as part of BPCA can select the test cases that you need to run. And then so this 7.2 again is built to support S/4HANA implementations, improving efficiency, what to test and when. And then the automation, you can see CBTA is really a very good tool for SAP automation. And then again, a couple of things on the data replication. You're not moving a lot of data when everything's integrated within Solution Manager, and it requires all the functional, it's all required for the functional testing, single source of truth. And here's the next webinar is September the 13th, 11 to 12 Pacific time, change impact analysis and test scope optimization. So again, if you want more information, have our demos, we can do an hour solution assessment, and then we have jumpstart packages. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ivan for Q&A and for a final poll question.
All right, thank you, Larry, and thank you, everyone. We're going to begin answering today's questions submitted during the presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. We do have a bunch of questions, but we're coming up to the top of the hour, so we'll try and get through them. If we don't, I'll follow up with you through an email. My team will follow up with you through an email. First question is from Kelsey. My company currently uses SP4, Service Pack 4, and are working on upgrading to Service Pack 5. Is there any major differences between SP4 versus SP5 in regards to the test suite?
Yeah, there were quite a few additional enhancements that were made to support Pack 5. So from test suite, there were a large number of those. So it would be good to upgrade to 5 from a testing perspective. So there were, I mentioned some of the things for the test composition environment. In a previous webinar, there were, I mentioned all the ones that were for test suite and test planning. So a lot of them are usability and ease of use, and then the one of them is being able to use process variants, which is a pretty good enhancement, where if you have like different variations of end-to-end scenarios, you can set those up in the process part, process flow part in solution documentation, and then it'll use that as a separate testing flow.
Okay, hope that answers your question, Kelsey. Another question from Daniel. What's the difference between SAP TAO and CBTA?
So SAP TAO and CBTA, the real big difference is not the functionality, but TAO works within HPLM, the business process testing module, and it uses UFT to execute the test. And CBTA is only in Solution Manager. It doesn't need UFT to execute the test cases. And again, it's all from a integration perspective, it's all included in Solution Manager. But TAO is, out of maintenance. It's in permanent maintenance as of January this year. So there's going to be no new enhancements or it's not part of the roadmap. So that means it's, whatever TAO is right now is where it's going to stay. But CBTA is part of maintenance going forward, and the roadmap, meaning it's going to be enhancements made to it as new things come along.
Okay, hope that answers your question. So we passed the hour. Next. So I thank you for your attendance, and here's another poll question. So if you need any help from us, just reach out to us using this poll. Thank you once again for attending. We really appreciate your presence. And if you have any other questions, please contact us. The questions that we do not manage to answer in today's webinar, my team will reach out to you through email, and we follow up with you. You will also receive a follow-up email shortly with a link to view today's recording. On behalf of everyone here at Core, ALM, and Larry, thank you for joining us today, and have a great day and the rest of the week. Thank you.